If you are a mid-level leader who is doing everything right on paper, right? You check all of the boxes, but you're still walking out of meetings replaying every single thing that you said and some of the things that you wanted to say but didn't say, or you're feeling drained at the end of the day because you know you were working so hard, but you don't actually have anything to show for it, or you are wondering why your team hasn't fully stepped up the way that you expect them to. Well, then this video is for you. Because honestly, most women who come to me for coaching, who come to me for training, they think that what they're missing is just to go harder. They think that the answer is that if they over prepare, if they over communicate, if they just manage harder, then they'll get there, right? They want to give cleaner updates more frequently. They want to decrease the timeline so that they're getting updates from other people more frequently. And they want to over prepare in every single interaction that they have. But what's actually missing isn't the effort, it's the influence. Because the hardest part of leadership isn't the workload, it's the mental load. It's the second guessing all of the decisions that you just made. It's managing your team and the tasks that they need to complete and up for the expectations that your boss has. It's feeling like no matter how much work you put in, your voice, your thoughts just don't land the way you want them to. And what most people don't realize is that this is not a competence problem. It's not that you don't know your stuff, you do. It's how you help other people see what you know that has the real opportunity. Before I teach you how to change that influence so that you can showcase the competence that you have, I want to tell you a story. I want to show you exactly how this looked for one client of mine because this didn't happen through authority. She didn't get a bigger title or more levers to pull. It didn't happen through personality. She used her same dazzling, wonderful personality through. It happened through how she communicated. So this client was a director of finance. She was smart, she was prepared, she was completely invested in her team. But within her department, she had two people who were completely eroding her leadership. She had a supervisor who reported to her that was pushing back publicly on every single piece that Kim tried to move forward. And then she had a high potential employee who was being kind of pulled in the wrong direction by this supervisor, right? There's a very us versus leadership or us versus senior leadership narrative going on from that particular supervisor. And it was really impacting one high potential employee, not to mention everyone else on the team. And it wasn't subtle, right? Kim knew all about it. In every single all hands meeting that she had, it just became this power struggle. And that was the reason that she came to me. She came to me because she had a problem with these two employees and she wanted to know how she could better control that messaging, how she could control that narrative. Now, I think that was part of the reason why it was harder for her was because she knew what was happening. She could hear all of the side comments, all of the, supervisor saying to the employee, "Don't worry, I have your back." Right? "Don't worry, I'm not going to let senior leadership push you around." And then her boss, her CFO, started asking questions, except the questions weren't about the numbers. He had complete confidence that she did have control over those numbers and she was managing them well. What he was concerned about was whether Kim had the presence, right? Who hasn't heard that word before? Whether she had the presence and the leadership maturity that was expected at that director level. And this is where most leaders will clamp down and try to gain control. Because what happens when you feel like you're being questioned from above and below? When you have people who report to you that are pushing on your every move, and then you have a boss who's saying, "Do you actually have the presence we need in this role?" You start to doubt yourself. You start to question if you really know everything that you do. And that's exactly what Kim did, right? And so, like I said, she came to me looking for which thing do I hold on to the tightest to right this ship quickly. Because I need to get results through those team members. I need to have supervisors who respect and support me. And I need to have a boss who wants to continue to work with me because he sees my value in this role. Thankfully, right? I am so grateful that Kim trusted me. And instead of changing what she held on to, she changed how she communicated. And not just in her emails, not just in her meetings, but everywhere. So in her meetings, she stopped trying to win the room. She stopped trying to prove that she was both everybody's best friend and right about everything. Really, what it came down to was she started talking less. But when she was talking, when she was speaking in those meetings, it was more intentional. It was setting the stage for what was to come. And then when she got pushback from that supervisor, she didn't shut her down. She didn't smooth it over. She didn't try to pretend that it was okay. She acknowledged that there was fear under every stark comment. Because that's what happens, right? When people aren't sure what to do, when they maybe don't have the competence that they need in their role, when they don't know how to make the changes that they need to make, they start to lash out. It's that fight or flight. Well, that supervisor wasn't going to leave, she wasn't going to quit. So she was fighting back because she was in this stressful, scary situation, right? And then with that high potential employee, Kim started focusing more on alignment and growth instead of sides. If that supervisor wants to throw sides out there, that's fine. But Kim, as the leader, as the top of that group, she could focus on the values and principles that were most important to them. And that allowed for that employee to see her as an asset, right? Kim was someone that she could go to for further growth, for future opportunities. It wasn't about us versus them. It wasn't about leadership versus employees. It was about all of them growing together. And in every conversation, she consistently tied the work back to the bigger picture. Now, there's a reason I said that twice, right? There's a reason we need to focus on that consistency. People need to understand that everything that they do, every piece of work that they touch, goes into the bigger picture and how it fits. They need to understand that they are part of this whole organization that is doing great things and can't do it without them. And I'll be honest, it didn't change overnight. This isn't something that Kim or I could flip a switch and it's automatically all better. But this slow, deliberate focus on the priorities that she needed to be focused on created a dynamic shift. That supervisor stopped trying to show off in meetings and stopped trying to protect herself and just started owning the outcomes that she was responsible for. The team stopped waiting to be rescued by someone, right? They were just caught in the middle of this supervisor who was pushing to go one direction and Kim who was trying to pull them in another. And they could start taking responsibility for the work that they needed to do. So that meant that meetings, interactions, work time became even more productive and honestly less tense. I mean, imagine when you go into a meeting and it feels like these two people are at odds, right? You are watching your boss and your boss's boss just kind of duke it out. Imagine how much of a time waste it is in that meeting. And then when you go back to your desks or, log out of the meeting if you're online and you start typing to each other about all the horrible things that you noticed and what you think the story is behind each thing, how much of a distraction is that? So flip that on its head. How much productivity are you giving back to every single employee when you make those meetings and those interactions collaborative? When suddenly the only story is where are we going together, not how at odds are they? Kim actually stopped walking out of conversations, wondering if she had said or done or thought the right thing. And more importantly than any of that, and all of that's important, right? The productivity of employees, the focus of the supervisor, Kim getting her confidence back from all of the work that she did with them. All of that is great and very important, but she had clear and measurable results that she could bring back to the CFO. Not on her effort, right? Not on, "Yeah, I'm working really hard to get me and the supervisor on the same page." Not on her intent. She wasn't saying, "Oh, I'm just about to start working on, team culture and how we can all get better together." She had actual evidence of the work that was being put in and the results that she was getting out of it. Results that pointed to culture and trust and respect. And that is when the conversation about her leadership changed with her boss. Okay, so I told you I would tell you what those 4 steps are, right? And you may have picked up on them in the story, but if not, I want to just walk you through them really quickly. So, number 1, you need to stop second guessing yourself. Kim stopped walking out of conversations, just replaying everything that was going on in her head. She knew that she was aligned with the overall vision and she could keep marching down that road. Number 2, I want your voice to carry the weight that it deserves. And carrying weight doesn't mean saying more. I say all the time in my classes, words are not cheese, more is not better, right? Kim actually spoke less. She just did it with more intention. She was strategic about how she pointed to the goals so that there wasn't this resistance that was hijacking the meetings anymore, right? Okay, number 3, the team had ownership. I want your team to have ownership too. The supervisor started owning the outcomes that she needed to have because Kim was allowing her to focus on that, not on the power struggle. And the team didn't have to be rescued from that awkwardness anymore. They got to just work on their work and see it for what it was, critical steps towards the future. And number 4, I do not want you to miss this one, but she went from being seen as a doer, as being seen as a hard worker who is trying really hard, to a leader who gets it. Remember, at the beginning of this story, at the beginning of when Kim first came to talk to me about this, her boss, the CFO, had major concerns about her ability to be effective in her role, right? So at that point, she's not talking about promotion. She's not talking about growth. She's talking about security in the job that she's in. And by the end of it, by the end of our 6-month work together, she had gained his confidence. Not because the numbers were great, though they were. Not because she had strategic meetings placed on the calendar in an exact order, even though they were very organized and well put together, but because she had shifted the culture. She had shifted it from a culture of risk, of frustration, of tension into transformation. And she had the proof, right? She had the receipts to show. This is the difference between managing and leading. It never gets old how many people say that they did not know that there was a difference when they first start working with them. Here is the key for you, my friend. Managing is trying to control a task, or at its worst, trying to control a behavior, whereas leadership creates alignment. You get to have this loose hold on things because you know the direction that it's going in. You aren't trying to hold on tight with both hands, and you don't need to, because you know that the strength comes from everyone holding it loosely. So Kim didn't have to become louder, right? She didn't have to become harsher. She didn't have to gain control or hold on tightly to anything because she learned how to influence strategically. And then her leadership just spoke for itself. That is the beauty of it. It can feel easy and light and calm and energetic at the same time because you are just trying to influence with alignment. So for Kim, that's when she stopped being seen as someone who just works really hard and started being recognized as someone who could lead at scale, right? Now the opportunities were starting to open. And again, all within 6 months. It takes time, it takes work, but it is something that is completely doable for you. You could walk through the next 6 months feeling in the same spot, right? With the same struggles, with the same frustrations that you've had. Or you can put in the same amount of work, but in a different way to come out of the next 6 months feeling like you are alive and energized to build something in alignment with your organization, yourself, and the people that you work with. So if you see yourself in Kim or in the version of yourself who's carrying too much because you think that that's what leadership requires, this is exactly the work that I do with my clients. I don't want leadership to feel exhausting for you or for anybody else. I want it to feel empowering, enlightening, and life giving for you to step into a role of leadership and influence. And I hope that this video helped you take one step closer to that version of yourself. Now, if the story about Kim made you go, oh my gosh, I know a Kim in my life. I know someone who is in that exact position right now. They have people working against them, and they know that to be secure in their role, they need to whip that into shape. Then I want you to share this video with them, right? I want you to share with them that it is possible to turn the ship